Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in to the next episode of our GameLogic Q&As. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Benjamin Jordan. How are you, Benjamin?
Hi there, doing well. How you
Great
doing?
to have you with us today. All good this end, mate. Starting to get cold over here in London. Dark early, but hopefully
Nice.
starting to get lighter now. So I want to start, Benjamin, if that's all right. I'd love to know a little bit more about you. Can you tell us about your background and how you've come to be CTO of Big Run Studios, right? Is your current role?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. CTO of Big Run Studios. I've been in the game industry for I don't know, a while, 15, 20 years. And I originally got into it by doing math and physics programming. I studied math in school, and there are really only so many programming roles where you do physics. And
Yeah.
I wasn't about to work at NASA, so games it is. And so got into the games industry doing a lot of physics stuff, and then um, just started learning a lot about programming versus modeling physics and math. And different game studios, I worked as an individual contributor, and just kind of worked my way up, learning different systems and different ways of thinking, until I was given my first management role as a lead engineer at NCSoft, which is a Korean MMO game studio. And from there, I was kind of trained into. They really helped me kind of get trained into being a technical director at that studio. About 30 or 35 people on the engineering team there that I got to take care of. And then from there, I left and started co-founded an augmented reality platform company as CTO. And that was a really neat opportunity that I jumped at. Kind of something different. It's kind of games, kind of platform. So it's uh, it's not as boring as making most platforms and web services or something like that. And it's still got all the excitement of games, but it's also something new. And then did that for about 3 years, and then now I jumped at the chance to join Big Run about a year ago as a CTO. Little different role. They already had some. They're already making money as a startup, which is
Good sign.
great. Yeah, and so so that's where I find myself now.
Oh, brilliant. And I find from speaking to senior people within engineering, especially those at the CTO level, sometimes they get to that level and unfortunately have to become fully removed from the code. So with you and your
Sure.
role as CTO now, I mean, what does that entail on a day-to-day basis? And are you able to remain hands-on with the code still?
Sure. I think I think this problem has a name. I think it's called the Peter principle, where people keep getting promoted until they no longer are good at their jobs. And so, like, in engineering, if you have a really good programmer and you promote them to a manager, well, that's a different job. Why on earth would you promote them to be a manager when they're good at something else? And so I like to stay hands-on. I'm a good coder, and I like to stay coding. And I really like everyone in the organizations that I build to be hands-on as well. You've proven yourself as a good coder, so let's keep you coding. I want to see that good code that I've seen in the past. Um, I would say that the trade-off between the different responsibilities is really almost wholly dependent on the scale of the company, though.
Yeah.
So at NCSoft, when I had 35 people, I wasn't coding much because I'm doing other stuff, and it wasn't really an organization built for that. Um, at my last startup, I started with 0 lines of code, so I was coding from the get-go, and kind of continually transitioning myself into other roles as we scaled up. And now at Big Run, we've got maybe 20 or 30 full time, and then another 10 or 20 external contractors. So I've been able to kind of transition that role from doing less coding, but still keeping in the weeds, moving on to architecture, code review. At the same time, you're building out like hiring processes, trying to take care of external relationships. And I think maybe the most fun part is as CTO, you're in charge of the future tech vision. You get to decide what that is, and then you get to line up the present day with that future, right?
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part for me.
Sounds like you've got yourself a great role, eh?
Yeah.
And in general, I mean, what is it that you enjoy most about the gaming industry?
Oh man, I mean, I kind of alluded to it, but the games industry is just full of really interesting problems that you're not going to find at the same time somewhere else. You know, if I were working on a web app or something, maybe there'd be some cool data problems or interaction design or something. But what about rendering? What about real-time networking? What about um, performance? You know, or if I like graphics, maybe I could go work at Pixar and make rendering software. But none of it's real time. There's no interaction. There's no, you know, so games has this really unique position where there are all these really interesting problems, and it's smack dab in the center. It needs everything in all of those domains, and it's just so exciting to be able to kind of touch on every one of them.
Brilliant. And it's the $1 million question, and unfortunately, we can't get away from it. But COVID, has it had an effect on the fortunes of Big Run, and also has it affected the way you view your workforce and how they might engage, i.e., work from home, work remotely, in office?
Hmm.
Has it changed your view on that long term as well due to COVID?
Sure. I mean, the effects of COVID are pretty well documented on the mobile games industry in 2020, at least. Led to a large increase in mobile gaming. People are at
Yeah,
home. You got a phone. I don't know. I guess people didn't buy Xboxes; they just kept their phone instead. But
yeah,
and so mobile gaming, yeah, it went up in 2020, and it's projected to continue rising in 2021. So that's great for us because we make mobile games.
yeah,
Um, I think so we were actually a remote company before COVID, and so I think a lot of companies have had to transition to a remote workforce, and that's been difficult. But we had no transition, so it's kind of like, well, now that the talent pool that we get to hire from has gotten larger because
yeah.
everyone wants to work remote, but
Uh,
we were already set up for it. Um, yeah, and as far as our long-term views on remote working, you know, I've always been a huge fan of remote working. My first 7 years in the industry were remote, and even you know, trying to hire at various companies when we're trying to fill out teams. Um, Oftentimes you can't hire at the quality you want, at the speed you want, right? For the price you want.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so looking to remote resources is a great way to increase the talent pool, potentially decrease the cost, because we're talking about studios in the San Francisco Bay Area who are, you know, they arguably might be the best, but all you really know is that the most expensive.
yeah.
And so I've always been a huge fan of remote working, and I'm excited for the changes to the industry as a whole, and not just in my immediate circle.
Yeah. And in my opinion, I think you're absolutely spot on. And we've seen the studios and the companies that have embraced remote working, or maybe that tampered with it a little bit pre-COVID, but have fully embraced it now. These are the businesses that are really starting to accelerate their growth now.
Oh
These
yeah,
are the studios and businesses that people want to work for, and these are the ones that are attracting those really kind of hard to get passive candidates who aren't actively looking but would move to
definitely.
you know, companies that will look at
Yeah,
remote working, because you know there's so many different factors to consider, right? Work home life balance, and
yeah,
people go work remotely and get used to seeing their kids all day and doing the
right.
school run or whatever that is. So I think you're absolutely spot on, and it tallies up perfectly with what we're seeing our end as well, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
um and that kind of leads on quite nicely to my next question, actually, and actually what you've just alluded to might be a part of that. But in your opinion, Benjamin, I mean, what do you anticipate to be the most kind of exciting, big changes in our industry in 2021?
Sure. Um, I mean, I think a lot of people are expecting cloud gaming to kind of explode. I'm probably less bullish on that in 2021 anyway, especially on mobile. I think that you know, maybe the ability to play Cyberpunk on my phone is not actually that cool because it wasn't made for my phone. So like, I don't know. That doesn't sound that exciting to me, but I think what is really exciting is we're seeing the app marketplaces really start to get shaken up a little bit. So Apple App Store, Google Play, they're both being hit with potential antitrust legislation in America and now in the EU. And then Apple is also kind of pushing itself in terms of opening up um, uh, about user privacy and where data is stored. Again, from pressure, probably mostly from the EU. America's kind of like whatever. And so I think that has the potential to make some massive shifts in the mobile gaming industry specifically when ad networks aren't as effective as they have historically been because you can't share data as freely. When people like Epic, they want different terms on their pricing. So maybe they're going to try to circle it around these issues in other ways. So I feel like there's going to be a bit of shakeup in how those app marketplaces work in 2021.
It feels like that for sure, and you could see that kind of thing starting to bubble. I think in 2020,
Yeah, yeah,
and it'd be very, very interesting to see the landscape, towards the end of this year for sure.
right.
I think
It's gonna
you're spot
it's
on.
gonna be different. I don't know. I think if you ask a futurist about the future, they can just kind of make up stuff. But as CTO, I have to write this stuff down, and like we make the business decisions dependent on on this. It's not like
Yeah,
I can say anything I want. So trying to be very specific about like um, the unknowns here too. About
yeah,
it's exciting. I think there are changes coming. I don't know exactly how they're going to affect the industry or what bets we should be making on those things.
yeah. Well, I won't probe further on that. Benjamin, you've been brilliant, mate. Thanks so much for your time today. This is going to be a great watch, I'm sure. I really, really appreciate your time. I hope to everyone watching, you enjoy watching this episode with Benjamin from Big Run. So thank you, Benjamin. Follow us
Yeah.
on YouTube. We've got our YouTube channel, social media, LinkedIn, Instagram. We'd love some more followers always. And if you'd like to feature on the next episode of our Q&A, give me a call, drop me a line. Details be below. Take care, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Myke.